Are you destroying your mixes with mix bus compression? Stick around if you want to learn the 6 vital mix bus compression mistakes that you could be making. Rob here from musicianonmission.com, and after working closely with thousands of home studio owners, mix bus compression seems to be a technique that a lot of people struggle with. And perhaps you're the same. After all, a wrong move here could ruin your entire mix, because that's literally what you're doing, applying compression to your whole mix. So if you want to enhance your mixes with mix bus compression and make them more exciting, more cohesive, and more energetic, keep watching. Now, before we dive in, make sure you download the free cheat sheet that I put together just for this video to make sure you get this right every single time. Inside, you'll find my best tips for applying mix bus compression and my go-to settings that I use in 80% of mixes. And I also included some of my recommended plugins in there too. It's completely free, so head to the link in the description now, enter your details, and you'll get instant access. So first of all, what is mix bus compression? Do you need a special compressor or a special plugin to do this? It's simply the act of applying compression to your whole mix. And normally you do this by applying it on the mix bus, which is just the term for the channel, the stereo channel that your whole mix is going through. In your DAW, if you haven't set this up yourself, it's probably going to be your stereo output channel or your master fader channel, something like that. But what you can actually do is set up your own mix bus. That's what I recommend doing. So then you can apply effects to your whole mix and then have a separate channel, like a reference channel that's not being processed. So that's all it is, applying compression to the whole mix. And there's numerous benefits to this. It adds more glue, it adds more excitement, and it will just help your mix to sound more cohesive. Now, mistake number 1 when applying this technique is avoiding stock plugins. So many people think that if you're doing this, you need an expensive plugin or even hardware, but that's simply not true. You can do this with a stock plugin to improve your mixes right away. You can go away after this video and do it now. You don't need a premium plugin to do this. And even if you're tempted to buy a plugin, maybe you think, well, I can afford it, I would actually recommend that you don't, and instead get started with stock plugins. Start practicing this technique with the stock compressor in your DAW, and only once you've really nailed it, then you can buy a plugin to take it to the next level, because by that point you're going to truly understand this technique. Because I'm pretty sure Waves are going to survive without you giving in to another one of their sales. Mistake number 2 is using a high ratio. Remember that anything you're doing on the mix bus, you're doing to the entire mix. So it's just exaggerated so much more. And in the same way that if you were to add EQ to your mix bus, you'd probably only add 1 or 2 dB of a cut or boost. When you're using compression, you want to use a really low ratio as well, because we just want to kind of add some really subtle compression. We don't want to really clamp down on it at all. So keep the ratio below 2:1 is my general recommendation. 1.5:1 or up to 2.1, but be very careful if you go above that. Mistake number 3 is applying too much compression, applying too much gain reduction. I find generally 1 dB of gain reduction, up to 2 dB of gain reduction is enough to just add some glue and some energy and some excitement. So an easy way to remember this is just 2 and 2. So ratio of 2:1 and 2 dB of gain reduction. That's going to get you 80% of the way there with mix bus compression. But of course, you need to think about attack time and release time too, which leads onto mistake number 4, which is using a fast attack time. Now, of course, you're going to have to adjust the attack time to taste. I really can't give you an exact figure, but I find that a medium to slow attack time works best on the mix bus. You don't want to go too slow because there's a lot going on. There's loads of instruments that you're applying compression to here. And if you use too slow an attack time, the compressor's not really going to react fast enough to the music. But a medium to slow or medium slow attack time I find works best. A fast attack time is going to make your mix sound flat and lifeless, but somewhere around 10 milliseconds or 10 to 50 milliseconds, personally I find works best. You will have to adjust it to taste, but that's a good starting point. Mistake number 5 is very similar, and it's using a fast release time. Because if you use fast release times, the compressor is going to be disengaging really quickly, and it can sometimes sound a bit unnatural, and it can even lead to distortion if you use a really fast release time. So I try to stay above 50 milliseconds, which is pretty quick. And my kind of starting point is 100 milliseconds. And then you need to time it to the tempo of the track. So if it's a slower track, maybe you can go up to 200, 300 milliseconds. And if it's a faster track, go a bit faster than 100, but try to avoid those really fast release times. And that leads on nicely to the final mistake, mistake number 6, which is to use really slow release times. So this is why with release, you kind of need to find a sweet spot, because if it's too fast, it can get distorted, it can sound weird. If it's too slow, then the compressor is not going to work properly, because if you have a release time, say 2 seconds or 1 second even, the compressor is going to engage and it's going to take a whole second for it to come back up again. And it's never going to really let go. Instead, you want to make sure the compressor's kind of releasing the track and going back to 0 at least once a bar, probably more often than that. So between snare hits, for example, you want to make sure the compressor is going back to 0. If it's not, your release time is too slow. So you've got to find that sweet spot. So if you want to recap those mistakes, make sure you don't make any of them, make sure you're not actually making your mixes worse, then be sure to download the free Mix Bus Compression cheat sheet that I put together just for this video. It's completely free, and inside you're going to find these mistakes as well as some tips, some additional tips, my go-to settings that I use 80% of the time, and the plugins that I use if you are thinking about moving into premium plugins. And once you start getting this right with the help of that cheat sheet, it's going to make your mixes sound more professional, more energetic, more cohesive. So make sure you go and download that. There's a link in the description. Just enter your details there and you'll get instant access. I'm Rob from musicianonamission.com, and I'll see you next time.